Dumb shit. Okay, now we're live. So I've done this before where I start talking thinking I've gone live, but I forgot to hit one of the buttons and am not actually live. How embarrassing. How embarrassing. I'm new to this. And oh, okay. So we'll just all right. Gravy. Hit one of the buttons and am not actually live. No, 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 no. I'll do that. There we are. Okay. Oh, sheesh. We'll give it a minute or two, see if anybody comes in. Uh, it's just that I feel like an absent-minded fool because I've done that 3 times. But to be fair, the button does say go live. And when you hit a button that says go live, you expect you're going to go live. But actually, it's 2 buttons. Jesus. Pump, 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 like a dope, 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 dope. Mm, mm, mm. Oy. Join up. Okay, all right. Thanks for coming in. Oh wait, is that me? Well, either way. So a couple of things I just wanted to talk about. I'm trying to get everything in my live smooth. I started a show called Campaigns and Conquests. It's on Monday at 7 p.m. Just want to do some follow-ups. On that show, I have a co-host, screen name Magenta. We don't use our real names. There's nothing off-putting about that or intended to be off-putting. We're just, the internet's a weird place. So, but I like to fly solo and just kind of do follow-ups and little one-offs and things like that. And today I had a lot of things on Twitter that were weird and led to some misunderstandings. And I just wanted to kind of go through them and just generally talk, so feel free to feel free to add your 2 cents worth if anybody ever comes. I ain't going to talk on this damn thing till I get people to show up. I'll chop the rest out. All right. Now we got some people. Thanks. So here, I'll just jump right in. Number one is I spoke about, tweeted about Twilight 2000. And this was the tweet made. Is this showing up on my screen properly? Yes. Okay. There was a lot of misconception about what I was trying to say. Some people said, well, don't be offended by what people say is not politically correct or something like that. That wasn't the issue. The issue was this. It was me in a ham-fisted expression of text, just lamenting on years where there wasn't this kind of shit. There wasn't anybody telling you can't play. We were looking for more players. we welcomed anybody who was interested because it was rare to find one. We were the land of misfit toys. We took in the outcast because we ourselves were outcasts. And now these folks that talk about inclusivity while excluding you because you don't agree with them politically, they create this situation where I had a game, Twilight 2000. I've always wanted to play it again. I've played it before, but I've always wanted to play some more of it. And I found the game open, or a game open, slots, looking for players, so to speak. But they wouldn't take me because they knew me and they go, oh, he's the wrong kind of political animal or whatever. And I've had this happen with a lot of different things. Well, not a lot, but several different things. Thing is, it's weird that the people that act this way, at least from what I've seen on the internet, they tend to play more Cold War level games, or era games, I should say. And I really like to do that. I can't get people on the other side to play them. And so it's kind of a bummer thing. I've had somebody who distributes war game material for Tabletop Simulator, which is a VTT, freely to everybody, as long as you vote for the guy he wants you to vote for. If you don't, he won't share his toys with you. And there's a lot of people that go, well, you know what, it's their platform, it's their toys, they can make the rules. Sure, they can be obnoxious or petty. There's nothing you can do to stop them, but it's still that. And the stuff is really cool, and it's just I'm not very good at being able to make that. I could enjoy everything better if this person was not selectively generous with his time, based on who you vote for. It's just silly stuff like that. So, but I got a lot of odd replies and people that seem not to catch the drift of what I was saying all that well. Another thing about it is I want to gain views. I am somebody that's trying to sell products, services, so I want to get more people's attention. This thing keeps going up. It's at 3,174. So you think, oh, hey, he's glad you're going and making more progress. And in general, yes, I want more views, but not for this shit. Pardon my French. Not that I'm embarrassed about what I said. I absolutely stand by it. It's just like, why does this one go through the roof in views versus me saying, hey, I've got this game for sale. You want to buy it? No one. So maybe it's because I've got more retweets on this one than I get on normal people, or normal posts, I should say. That may be it. So some people mock you for begging for likes and retweets, but I'm begging for them because they really help. And I'd love to reach these kind of numbers on something more substantial, a statement, than griping about being gate kept because I cast a ballot for a dude. But if you're not familiar with Twilight 2000, it's an interesting game. There was as always, there's some complaints about certain portions of the rules being complicated or wonky or tie people down. And that's where I start thinking, all right, here's the other thing. Twilight 2000 is great. I've got all the material. Not everybody does. And even if you were like saying, oh yeah, this looks like fun, I want to go do it, and I don't have the material, finding it is a pain in the rear. And it's an expensive pain even if you do find the stuff. Now people say, well, they've made a new version. I know they have. It's got mixed reviews. I'm not a modern purchaser. I'm not going to go out and buy stuff. I spent a lot of money on stuff all through the late 70s and 80s when I had cash flow. I don't have cash flow. I'm not going to have cash flow. So I'm not going to be spending on new stuff. So conundrum, well, this is where I get into my free Kriegspiel type of talk. All right, let's forget about the rules. Let's forget about the publishers. Let's sit down and just play something in this era. I can come up with almost like a one-page guideline of a little bit of combat rules that aren't too difficult, and just make rulings on everything else. Free Kriegspiel can, if you explain it, some people go, "Oh, you're talking about rule zero." Yes and no. There is a framework to work with. It's just very light, and in general, most things are just done by rulings by the uh, GM. I like to. Some people might argue, but I like to think that the difference between Free Kriegspiel and Rule Zero is that it's not just what makes a good story. I'm not pulling a ruling out of thin air because I think it's the way the story should go. I'm pulling the ruling out of knowledge and guidelines because it's the right way to educate what's going on, to arbitrate the rules. For so, uh, so we could walk past GDW and Twilight 2000 and still play the kind of uh, post-apocalyptic Third World War 1980s Red Dawn-ish type of thing without having to worry about what set of rules or how complicated they are to play. So that's another thing. That's kind of my subject on that. Some other things came up. DM style. Gary D20 came up with this meme, which is a little bit ham-fisted in my personal opinion, but that's okay. Scroll down. Bookmarking this stuff is hard. Okay. So conventional wisdom describes DMing. Let's see if anybody's got any comments first. Anybody got anything to say here? Anybody? Oh, all right, leave it. Sorry, I can't hold your attention better. Nothing to say. Okay, so we'll get to the right tab. Sorry. Conventional wisdom describes DMing. Is this conventional wisdom? Okay, I'll defer. No blank in my capital world. Okay. And Gary's question was, what side do you lay on? And most people were like, somewhere in the middle. And I agree. But as far as this one goes, some people refer to the top line of thinking as being a dick DM or being too hardcore. And I'm not sure that all of them apply to that, like what goes in my world. I've created the world. If the world doesn't include tieflings or dragonborn, that's the world. It's all right. I don't think it should be that disappointing if something's omitted from it. I don't really see the issue there. My DMing labor, that's the next one, affords me privilege at the table. Some of these are a little bit confusing. Not really sure what you mean by privilege. I think I would largely disagree, though. I do ask some people, hey, if you see me bringing up DM services, you're welcome to try them. I think you'd like them. They're not very expensive. I know a lot of people just get so wound up about that and they just turn you off. Here's the thing. I got the idea after reading about it being a thing in COVID. And I think it probably was a little bit more popular in COVID. For me, it's, hey, let's put it to you this way. Somebody comes up to me and says, hey, I need somebody to run this story or this module or something. And it's something I don't like. I'll do it, but you got to make it worth my while. Right now I'm playing on and off. I'm DMing a Star Wars campaign. I love Star Wars. I don't need to get paid for that. Shit, I was about ready to pay people to play with me. I love that game. It's not an effort to me to do that. It's fun. I'm not going to charge you for that necessarily. Now, if you want me to go run some, brand new Disney Acolyte RPG thing, I'll do it, but not for free. So that's what I think of DMing labor. Labor is doing something I don't find enjoyable. I don't consider being paid for that privilege. I consider it an exchange of services for money. As far as ultimate power and godlike, or because the DM said so. I, you know, nobody likes somebody that is acting authoritarian, and I've had people that do that once they get in the DM seat. It's like they have this gleam in their eye and this gavel. I'm going to get you, and nobody likes that. That I would consider dick DMing. But I do think that you you need to maintain control in that you need to assert that your rulings will be final, so the game doesn't evolve into a debate instead of it previously being a game. Because if you give certain people the latitude, they will argue a point to death. They will spend their time looking to find loopholes in rules to exploit in order to get ahead instead of just playing the game. So, and I think that's what the whole dissertation in things like DMG was about, is keeping the game flowing and keeping people from trying to hijack uh, the game from you. Because I've had players do that, show up and start telling me, well, you're not doing this right, you're not doing that right, and literally try to just push me aside to take over themselves. So that's what I think was being said as far as the DM said so. And as far as responsible for all fun, no, I'm not, period. I don't know where people get that idea. I'm not really sure what they mean by all knowing. So on the other side, we all inspire each other. Again, I'm not really sure what they're aiming at with that. I don't see anything negative about the statement in and of itself. So, okay. Building something amazing together. Well, sure. But what? If you're talking about building a world, no, I build the world, you play within it. Hopefully you find it amazing. I don't really, I look at the collaborative thing a little bit differently. But as far as building a nice table, a community, a group that meets and enjoys the game that they play every, week or month or whatever their, schedule is, sure. Nothing wrong with that. Here's the thing. I don't see how some of these things on the bottom negate or go against something on the top. We can build something together. We can have an amazing time together, even if I say, "Hey, I don't want any tieflings in my world because they just don't exist." Shouldn't be a game breaker. My friends' imaginations surprise and delight me. Okay, that's a declarative statement, an observation. I don't really see how that applies to DMing in general anyway. And I also don't see how it is like some yin versus the yang above. So I'm maybe I'm just slow, but I don't see it. Upset? Let's step away from the game and talk like adults. Sure, you can do that, depending on what's upsetting you. We modern players have a lot of odd things that upset them, and sometimes I'll try to be diplomatic. Sometimes there's no resolution. So it all depends on what you're upset about, and if conflict resolution is something that's going to settle it. And if it is, sure. At the risk of repetition, I don't see how that is conventional wisdom doesn't have that as an idea. That's just people working with one another. So here's the battle cry: context, cool shit, and consequences. I don't know. Maybe I'll get slapped with the boomer thing for not being able to pick up on that one, but you got me. I can't wait to see how they get out of this one. Well, sure. Here again. All of these, this is the meme. I don't know. If I'm missing something, if it's going over my head or I'm too thick, okay, let me, educate me. But I don't get it. How this is, the artwork portrays the top as being dark and foreboding, and the bottom as being bright and exciting. And I really don't. It seems quite biased, and I don't really quite understand where some of this is coming from. Um, but yeah, I do that. I can't wait to see how my friends are going to get out of it. I can. Is it the implication is that as opposed to I can't wait to see how I stomp their PC's Ghibli bits into the ground with my, okay, if you're a DM looking to kill them as opposed to giving them the opportunity to survive, I guess maybe that's what they're trying to infer, and I agree. Excuse me, you don't want to be that kind of person. I have no idea what they're going to do. Who does? You can't read minds. It's fun to have players that are imaginative and might color outside the lines you think you've drawn. Sure. But this was supposedly competing DM styles, and I don't see how these things indicate that. I only know it will be awesome. Do you, though? I mean, and there again, awesome, fun, great, those are all subjective. If you're playing, My Little Brony RPG, there's nothing awesome about that to me. It don't matter how you're playing or how much fun the rest of you having. I'm eating broccoli. That's how exciting that game would be to me. So I don't know how you know any of that, but or maybe there's a subtlety in these statements or underlying code that I'm not picking up on, but I don't see the meme. It sure got a lot of replies, and it's getting more, and good for them. Maybe it'll lead some insight as to what the hell some of this means. Maybe I'm just thick as a brick. I agree, though. I think it's kind of a false dichotomy. These aren't very insightful replies. I mean, no disrespect to anybody, but they're kind of, these gifts don't. I don't know. Maybe I'm too old, and but anyway, further along with my philosophy on DMing is, and we just talked about this on the big show on Monday. And so if you haven't checked that out, go ahead and check that out. It's on my YouTube page. I'll give you a link to that page as soon as I get I'm always afraid to share screens for fear something not wanting to come up. Hey, Mage's Musings. I never see him anymore. Oh, he's playing in Heroic. Nothing wrong with Bear. Bear's a cool dude, and I'm glad his thing is flying. I didn't mean to sound like I was disappointed. I just like, to hear his philosophies, but enjoy. Maybe that's why no one's coming to mind, because there's bigger fish swimming in the pond that are, I'm learning. I'm getting my sea legs, as it were. Anyway, here's the link. I'm presuming you can see that in Twitter, that Streamlabs allows that. If not, I just posted you. So, well, anyway, you can pick it up on my Twitter, which is up there too. I put that link up there. So that was the Gary part. But just to expound on my theory of DMing, and again, we were talking about that on the show. It really depends on what I'm doing. I very much like to meld role playing with my, meld wargaming with my role playing. And if you're GMing a war game or refereeing or judging or whatever term you want to use, which not many people are doing, I know how infuriating it is for a lot of people to hear RPG types say you're not playing the game right, you're not playing D&D right. I've heard several people say that about different versions of D&D, and I get it why it makes people mad. But I'm going to say this about wargaming: if you're not playing with a arbiter, with a referee, a judge, while you war game, you really aren't doing it right. The difference between two guys or gals, people at a table that can see everything that's going on, pushing around counters on a map like it's some overly complicated chess match, versus more than two people on a side playing as a team against another team, where all you know about what's going on is what your troops on the field are able to glean as far as intelligence and sight and all that, and report back to you. It's a completely different game. It's a totally different dimension. A lot of the things you do as a DM in role playing, you can carry over to being a judge in a game. A lot of things you don't think war games are can be, as far as this goes as well. You should try it. And if nobody's willing or knows what I'm talking about or has ever done it, come to me. I'll do it for you. Next week on Monday, we're going to show you about this. They're far closer cousins than people often say they are. Howdy, Stormcrow. I'm aspiring GM that's ambitious enough to make an epic high fantasy campaign, but I've only done 2 solo sessions. Any tips? Sure. Well, I would definitely try as hard as you can to play with a couple of people. There's nothing like getting the feedback from a third party or from a different person when you're playing. Other things is, and we were talking about this on Monday on my big show, Campaigns and Conquest, for a couple hours. Detail is something that people try to escape, try to gloss over. When you're making a campaign, when you're making a world, don't. If you want to get away from detail, if you want to get away from complexity, that's something you should focus. Combat is often the thing that slows games down the most. And if you want to try to find a way to streamline those kinds of mechanics, that's where you keep it from bogging down. But when it comes to creating your world, you want as much resolution, as much granularity as you possibly can. It makes it immersive. It makes it more interesting for the player. We were talking about Rob Kuntz. He's a famous D&D, I'm sure you're aware. And he was discussing this too, that he had seen a lot of the campaigns that consisted of nothing but the tavern, the store, and the dungeon you kept walking back to. But what you really want is a village that is bustling with activity. You want to be able to have your players walk up to anybody, as insignificant or irrelevant to your campaign as you think they may be, and still be able to have a contextual conversation and interaction with that character. From a farmhand to the mayor to whomever. Make more characters. Make sure that they're fleshed out enough that if they are approached by your people, you can have this conversation. And try as hard as you can to make every conversation lead towards divulging some pertinent information to the player character party. I completely empathize with that situation. I am often in the same. There is a way to have a fairly, in my opinion, a fairly interesting and immersive long-run campaign by yourself, and that is with the extensive use of randomly generated material. That's really the way I would do it. And my system has that. I'm putting out a RPG system called Paracosmic Convergence, and I have those random generators for everything from a dungeon to a village to a country to a continent. And I think that is. I also, a lot of people have a ethical taboo about artificial intelligence, but it can be of a benefit in something like that too. It's amazing that the more I talk to the one that I pay for, which is ChatGTP, the more it remembers um, everything that I've said in the past, and it has created. Um, I don't know how do I say create, but it has the ability to come up with things um, that are specific to my campaign because I've talked about that campaign with it for so long. So it helps flesh things out. Now, I've also taken and said, all right, I want to go to my campaign, Star Wars. It's a sci-fi. So I said, I want to go to this planet, but I don't want to know anything about it, or I don't know anything about it. It's just give me a random planet. And this thing will give me all the random stuff, tell me, here's the climate, here's the population, here's the name, here's the major city. And it'll find ways to tie things into the rest of my campaign for me. So yeah, I think the use of those generators and a little bit of AI to supplement it can provide you a really interesting solo campaign. I would recommend using, if you're interested in finding people, keep trying. There's a lot of groups out there. Nothing beats a human, but I understand that sometimes it's not as easy to do as some people think to get people interested to play. But yeah. I've played a lot of campaigns. There was years where I just didn't have very many people to want to play, and I played a lot of war game campaigns by myself. It required me having, thinking from the perspective of opponents, and it never gave me as much satisfying gameplay as playing with another, because I never truly didn't know where everything was. There was no limited information when it's all in your head, but it still was enough to just kind of whet my appetite and play through a campaign. And that, as a war gamer, the only solo campaign, role-playing campaign that I've played was just rolling up my own custom continents with my own system and kind of playing through them with a party. I don't play with just one character. When I did it, I played with a whole group. Although I don't know if it would be considered a campaign, but I did take the old board game Dungeon and played Beckme with it one time as a whole thing. That was kind of a little mini campaign. Before I leave, I'm currently doing with another player a campaign called Portobello. Think of Legend of Zelda, but with medieval lizard folk. Okay. It's hilarious, and I'm slowly going to make it more serious. Be honest, is that idea too? Hey, I'm a big Nintendo player, and I think it's great. I always like the idea of taking video games to a different direction, or using that as a thematic template for RPGs. It'd be fun, and I like comedy. I used to play an RPG named Toon, and we played it with adults in a bar after hours. And we laughed harder than we did in a lot of the comedies of the day. So there's nothing wrong with a little comedic, but serious or comedy, that'd be a lot of fun. I'd love to play more Zelda personally. So I approve. I think it's a great idea. Mm-hmm. So thanks for the questions, and I hope the advice was helpful, wasn't too chopped up or whatever. I try to be succinct. I think I do a fairly good job of it. Anybody else? Love to hear from other people. Appreciate your input and your questions. Hope to hear from you again. Feel free. I come on I'm going to try to come on more frequently, just maybe nightly if I can get away with it. But definitely Monday, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time is the big show with me and Magenta. Usually a couple hours worth of gaming commentary, advice, discussion, sometimes gameplay. Next weekend we're going to, or next week I should say, we're going to play through a fantasy miniatures battle using a set of rules that I came up with as an alternative to chainmail. Kind of get that chainmail vibe without all the confusion and multiple books. And chainmail's neat, but it's almost, you almost have to be a archaeologist to go through all the different connections and books, and we put it all in one volume and made it more concise. Oh, for context, my player plays I'm new and I'm still working on getting the rhythm of the delay. I forget that there's about 7 to 10 seconds delay between what I say and you hearing it. So bear with me if I kind of preempt. I'll get there, folks. Noob in training. For context, my player plays a 4-foot-tall lizard man gunslinger called Cosmo Romano. Cosmo Romano, my mistake. And his Princess Zelda is a black-scaled, red-eyed lizard. Time to get the glasses adjusted. Called Night Lily. Imagine Azula as a lizard. Okay. Yeah. Sounds like a lot of fun. So, and this is your, let's see, with another player campaign. Yeah. Sounds like a lot of fun. Pardon me while I choke on my coffee. Gunslinger. Sounds like a joy. We'll have to take a look at it. Feel free to I see you're talking through Twitter. If you've got me on follow, feel free to show me some pictures and share what you're doing. I'd love to see it, and I'll go ahead and repost it and let everybody get a glance. Maybe it's maybe you can find some players that way too. So let's see, moving on. So sorry about it's very humid here and I've got allergies, so pardon me for coughing often. What was next? Okay, so we covered the DM thing. A little bit of the culture wars. A lot of people get really down and out. They don't want to hear this anymore. I totally understand. But I had a conversation with some people about it and tuning out from it. And there's a little bit of misunderstanding. And that's really what I want to clear up. I don't want to really get into some Donahue discussion or argument about culture wars per se, but some people were talking about it. I didn't understand what they were saying completely. So I want to clarify, understand that I didn't quite catch what they were getting. It was Basic Expert. He was just saying it's one of these weird deals where I type out what I think is clear. No doubt he did as well. I don't find myself to be stunted in reading comprehension. I know he isn't. But for whatever reason, there was kind of a talking pass. So what he was saying was he's just focusing on the old stuff. He's just kind of where I'm at. I'd rather play stuff from the 70s and 80s because it's a personal choice. It's not necessarily any political statement or anything like that. Just tired of all the angst and conflict that comes with modern gaming and these culture issues and stuff. So I know it sounds somewhat schizophrenic to complain about culture issues or political issues in the beginning of the show and then say, I don't really want to talk about them. That was kind of the point I was trying to get across to him, is that no matter how hard you try to ignore it, if you're communicating online, eventually it's going to be interjected in your discussions, whether you like it or not. And I certainly wish that wasn't the case, which is what I was saying at the beginning of the show when I brought it up. I just wish it wasn't that way because I'm missing out on some gaming. And that's a real bummer. So, but enough about that. It's an unpleasant topic, and I just wanted to make sure that I got all the clarifications out, so there wasn't any misunderstandings in the future. Beyond that, Star Wars is a big thing for me, and that, of course, that's another thing where there's a lot of contention about what is real Star Wars and who's a toxic fan and all that. And I don't care anymore. I just like to play Star Wars D6, and I like Star Wars. I'm of the age where I had attended the original release of the show, the 1977 release, and just was a fan. So I do play a lot of that. I have 3 campaigns available. I'm trying to get more events. I have a Discord server, and I just want more people to be involved, and I want to play more games. So I'm using this platform as a way to perhaps get more people involved. So I have 3 Star Wars games. One that's currently going. It's had a small pause. A couple people have had some personal issues and haven't been able to attend, but it's technically still going on as a campaign. We'll be starting up soon, and that's called Ash Worlds. And it's about a sector of space on the galactic map that is kind of backwater and empty, and was a part of the beginning of the rebellion. And you can play as one of these special forces operatives operating for the rebellion. Most of your missions will be in either the Ash Worlds or just bordering that sector of space, which it does border the Hutt space at some point. So there's a lot of activity with the Hutts and gangsters and stuff like that. And your primary mission is to recover, steal, purchase weaponry, gear, information for the rebellion to use against its war against the Empire. So there's a second game that goes along with that campaign, which is a play-by-post war game where you command forces of the rebellion or the Empire or some neutral forces in the actual galactic civil war, the military portion of the fighting between those forces. And you post your orders as to where you want your troops to go or your ships to deploy. And if battle comes up, you get your reports through post, and you give your updates through post on the Discord server. So it is a system that I have done a couple of times with people and been relatively successful. I played in one that somebody else was running, a Swedish fellow, and that was a Star Wars as well. And it's the epitome of the free Kriegspiel. There's no dice being rolled, although in mine there is. You can roll dice, because I think that if you take away dice rolling from people, they're bored. You want to be able to have some effect on the world around you and all that stuff. But other than that, there really wasn't any rules. You told the game controller what you wanted done, as far as what, I want my ship to go here, or whatever it was, as far as orders. And what happened as a consequence of your decision to make whatever orders, you got a reply from the game controller. Well, you've come out of hyperspace and here's a battle, or this happened, or whatever. So it just became a free-form way of role-playing over text and a strategy war game type of situation. That's basically the essential Kriegspiel. I should turn this off. So the screen sharing, there we go. So you can give that a shot. That's one of the things we're doing. Another thing we're doing is Dawn Patrol. That's an old war game with a hint of RPG in it. You play a World War I pilot who's trying to achieve, well, he's trying to survive, trying to achieve glory by winning, and winning means downing the enemy airplanes or completing other missions. So it's got a real neat RPG element if you play a campaign version of it. If anybody's familiar with it, you might hear, well, it was kind of fun, but it was complicated and all that. And the RPG element really wasn't there, other than you give your pilot a name and stuff like that. But if you play successive missions, you see the RPG side of the game kind of blossom out, where you're communicating with your other pilots, you're developing a personality. There's a good GM can add a little bit of RPG mechanics in there and flesh it out into a hybrid system. So that's what we've done. You're awarded medals if you achieve victory selflessly, or go beyond normal duty, or things like that. And those medals do two things for you. They enhance your abilities, but they also enhance your fame and notoriety with not only your comrades, but the people back home. And that's part of that's like achieving, it's like getting gold in D&D. That's the currency that you're looking for. You're trying to make a name for yourself. So it's just a different way of playing. It's pretty interesting. You can give that a shot. World War I combat is very different from other types of later fighter combat. If you're familiar with the history, well, if you're not, I'll explain that it was cutting edge stuff. Airplanes were in their infancy, and these guys that were flying them were very famous, and they were called the Knights of the Air by some people, and kind of a Hollywood heroes and propaganda boon for the war. So it's not just, hey, I'm some soldier that gets into a gray fighter plane and fights like every other soldier in a gray fighter plane. These all have it's more like BattleTech, where you have an individual unit that you work with, and all your planes have different personalized paint schemes, and so it lends itself to RPG better. Just some of the things we're doing. Let's see what else. We got miniature games going. Speaking of BattleTech, we have BattleTech miniature games that you can play. We have fantasy miniatures. We have historical medieval miniatures games available, and scenarios ready to play should you want to join in. World War II war games, all on my Discord server. So I'll give you the link to that here. I turned off the screen sharing, but I'll give you the links. Invite people. Again, anybody that's still watching, feel free to ask any questions or have any discussion. Thanks again for Stormcrow for stopping in and talking, asking some questions. But as far as any of these games go, and the DM style, or what you'll have is myself, more than likely, or one of my staff members, or me and a staff member running these games for you. If you don't know how to play, you don't have to. That's one of the beauties of the Free Kriegspiel, is that we can just set you down and we can take care of like, if you go, well, those 80s games, they're so complicated, and there's so many charts and all that, and that's kind of your deterrent from wanting to play them. Fine. Now you don't have to. That's gone. I do that. I'll just explain to you how the combat works, tell you what you want to shake for, so that you have, the ability to roll your bones and understand the context of it, in that what it means when the number comes up, so you're not you're involved to that extent as far as rules. Beyond that, looking through charts, you don't have to do any of that. I hear so many people say, well, I hate those games. I hated them because you had to take so much time flipping through charts. Not now. You can just play where we take care of it. We read the chart. We give you the result. And we don't just give you the result that you had on the chart. A lot of those old Avalon Hill games, they were X, or they had some sort of code that you had to interpret in order to understand what those results meant. Not anymore. You'll just hear a narrative description of what your combat did. Take dogfighting. Oh, you fired a burst and it ripped through the right wing strut of your target. You can see the canvas flapping where you hit it, or you hit the engine, it's smoking and there's flames coming out of the cowling, or whatever the case may be. You'll hear something that's that kind of description, a narrative, immersive description, as opposed to, well, you hit the right wing for 3 points of bullet damage, or you hit the orc with your hammer and took 9 hit points away, or whatever clinical thing that you get from these games. You won't get that. You'll hear something that's much more interesting to hear. You'll still be able to interpret the effect. You just won't have to learn a bunch of jargon or acronyms or anything like that. If you're still not interested in games that are possibly older than you are, that's fine. That's what the free Kriegspiel thing can do as well. We can play World War I biplanes if that's your thing. We can play World War II boats if that's your thing. You can go wherever you want if you're willing to forgo the majority of rules and put trust in a GM who's going to just make, again, the little mantra that we use, rulings instead of rules. That's going to be fair. It's going to be knowledgeable and competent in arbitrating conflicts or coming up with random generated results. If it's something like, if you throw a pitch, it's not, no matter who you are, and it's always going to be a strike. So there's going to be dice involved based off of your probability to throw a strike, just as an example. So I guess technically that's still rules, but instead of reading some page and a half of combat procedure, step 1, do this, step 2, that's all gone. Now all you know is, well, I need a 16 in order to throw that strike on a D20. Again, just an example. There you go. That's it. That's all you need to know. So you can sit down, you can start playing the game right off the bat. You can start making interesting decisions without having to commit a lot of mental energy to some gigantic player workload that comes with reading a big manual and understanding all the concepts and understanding all the acronyms and buzz phrases that come with it, and all that sort of thing. That's free Kriegspiel. So, and save yourself a lot in paying for books. Now, I know a lot of people still want to buy RPGs, and that may be like, well, that's a good idea, but I kind of like the books and all that. Well, we have that too. We can play a game that exists and be the judge for that game, or we can just choose a genre and be the judge for that. It goes either way. We have our own products, so that's the choices that we have. But our style is the same, because we're not influenced by ego or bias. It's a job. It would be against the interest to have any bias, to be incompetent, or anything like that. So it's just a different approach to it. So again, a lot of people I know go, "Oh God, I'm not paying for this. It's a game. It's supposed to be fun." All that. Well, okay, I get it, but you get a completely different experience without the pitfalls for a nominal fee comparative to buying a whole bunch of books or games. So now, being a GM for a war game is a little bit different. This is what we were saying yesterday. You're fighting an enemy in a war, or they're your mortal enemy, as it were. They're going to try to kill you, and they're going to try everything they can, within the legal confines of the world. So there, if the GM is your enemy, the GM's going to try to crush you under their heels. Here's the difference. If you were to do that with a peer, it would be difficult. And this isn't to disparage people's integrity, but it would be difficult to not think that even on a subconscious level, there may be some, you can't, the quarterback for your team can't ref and quarterback the team. You know what I mean? He doesn't really, can't do that. So here you have people who, again, who don't have a dog in the fight per se. That way, they're doing it as a job, and they will give you a challenging and fair experience. But if it's a war game, they're going for the throat, because that's the point. So that's what we're offering as far as that goes. What else can you play with us? Paracosmic Conversions. I mentioned that to the Stormcrow that was here earlier. That's just our OSR RPG. The philosophy behind that, we'll go through that just to have something to talk about. The philosophy of that is, I wasn't happy with the hit points thing in any game. I got tired of that kind of stuff. I just didn't like the idea that everything was, instead of being a narrative description of combat that was interesting, it was this mathematical, clinical conversation. Okay, you go through 4 people. All right, Tom, Dick, Harry, and Jason. All right, Jason, what's your character going to do this combat round? Well, he's got this, this magic +2 arrow in his, quiver. So he's going to fire that. And, the DM goes, all right, armor class this and damage number that, instead of, watch a good combat sequence, a good firefight, or whatever it is, whatever kind of movies you like, and then describe it to somebody. They can't see it. You don't have the movie in front of them, or whatever. You have to just describe it with words. Well, first the barbarian grabbed this giant warhammer and hit the first minotaur in the snout, and it crushed its skull or whatever. That's what I wanted to hear. That's the kind of results my combat system puts out, because that's what I wanted to hear. It turns combat from this thing that people are constantly talking about slowing the game down because it's uninteresting and it's procedural and it's numeric and it takes forever, to being as quick as possible. I think I've done a good job of making a comprehensive yet fast playing combat that gives you a narrative output. It isn't, you've lost 4 hit points because you were hit by this arrow. It's you were hit in the shoulder and you have a minor wound where the arrow, scraped you but kept on flying, or something like that. I'm just pulling stuff out as examples, or if it's a really successful attack, the barbarian or the fighter cleaves the arm off the goblin clean with a mighty blow from his broadsword, whatever, something like that. Makes for a very interesting thing. So it can be a one roll. If you don't care where on the body something was hit, here's how it works. You roll a die. It's like I say, it's old school, so there's modifiers and all that, but it's whatever. So the higher you roll, the more severe the damage inflicted is. And then the second roll is where on the target did you hit it? Why do you need to know? Some people say, I don't need to know that. Well, all it does is give a visualization as to what exactly happened to the, you were hit so hard in the shoulder that it cut your arm straight off, or you were run through at the gut, or this, something like that, or the sword clipped your throat and that kind of thing. It generates a visual description. And those effects are, they're not just visual. If you're hit in the throat, you're stunned. If you're hit deep in the throat, you're bleeding out, and you're going to have problems breathing as well. So your ability to fight is going to degrade significantly, if not be eliminated. Some things, you can lose a finger or a hand. Now, a lot of people don't like that. They go, well, if a character can be permanently maimed, then that's as good as a character being killed, because now you can know. Well, that's not necessarily true. There's ways that people can overcome handicaps and be physically capable in a lot of things. The other day I saw a guy breakdancing and he only had one arm, and he was on America's Got Talent. I don't normally watch that sort of stuff, but somebody's like, oh, you got to see this. This is just amazing. This guy's a handicap and he's only missing a leg and blah, blah, blah. And that dude was incredible. So it doesn't necessarily take your character out, but it can. And the point of that is, again, it's the visual narrative. Plus, I got tired of hearing about murder hobos. I wanted a high risk, high lethality game. I wanted something where starting a fight was something you really didn't want to do, even with something that looks like you might ultimately be able to defeat it relatively easily. That doesn't mean they might not get in a lucky shot and give you a permanent scar or damage you permanently. That kobold might be easy enough to kill, but if it gets in that one lucky shot with its, maybe it pokes your eye out, that can happen. It's not likely, but it can happen. And then you'll be working with that for the rest of your life as a character. So you're going to think, is there any way I can get around fighting because of the significant consequences that can come from being in one? Plus, the rest of the design theory on that was, now I can use the same system in a variety of different places. Let's say you're storming the beaches of Normandy. I didn't want some game where you had to count down hit points in a modern war setting, or even World War II isn't considered modern by most people, but in that kind of combat setting, you can get snapped. You won't even know where it's coming from. It can happen in a blink of an eye. And with my system, that's possible. People say, well, why the hell would I want to play where I only last 2 or 3 minutes? OSR, baby. We're not about, trying to carry one character through. Death is a part of it. If you're playing a system like that, and if you're playing in a place like Normandy or any type of battlefield, write up some sheets, play more than one character, have some people on backup or whatever it is. So don't take it too hard if you lose a guy, if you're playing in a situation where attrition is just, death is part of the day's work, like it was in something like the Second World War, as tragic and awful as that is. In reality, it was horrible, of course, but that's it. That's just the way it was. It's part of the role playing. It's part of the story. It's part of the environment that you're in. Some people don't find that appealing. I do. I don't think it's that big of a deal. So that's why we do that sort of thing. Now, so there's ways to mitigate it. It's not unbalanced per se. It's not. I mean, some people will always call it such, but you can die real friggin' quick. The other thing is I don't have the traditional strength, constitution, all that stuff. I saw some people talking about it in relation to BX D&D and original edition D&D and stuff like that. And I started looking at it and I thought, there's got to be better ways to do this. So it's a very skill-based attribute. The attributes are different. You either have an attribute or you don't. You have a random amount determined when you generate a character. And they give bonuses. They help in some way. They have significance. But they're not this thing that goes up and down necessarily. And I like skills versus attributes. And a lot of people say, well, OSR might be, well, maybe. But I think you can have a more customized individual character if you're focused on developing a set of skills instead of gaining bonuses to vague overarching attributes. Now, some people go, well, that makes it more complicated because there's all these things that you have to think about. But it's not like other games where there's a lot of mathematics to it. You get your attributes can give you a bonus of just a few, between 1 to 3 in some cases, between 1 to 5 in others. I mean, it's not really that complex of a math calculation. So stuff like that. That's some of the things we do with it. It can go anywhere. I wanted it, like I said, I can go to Normandy. I can go to, the village or the dungeon in some fantasy world and go to sci-fi. You can go to the West, Wild West, whatever, gunslingers at the OK Corral or stormtroopers on some planet. I mean, I can't really be Star Wars, but you know what I mean, somewhere sci-fi. Now, if you buy it and you want to play Star Wars with it, anyway, okay, they can't stop you doing that. I can't give you NPCs that have, that say Stormtrooper or Luke Skywalker, obviously, but it's geared to be sci-fi. And if you want to take it into those IPs, you can at home, with your friends, if that's where you want to go. So it can do all that sort of stuff. I wanted it to be able to do that. Anybody got anything else to say? Talk about? I think I've covered it. What else did I want to mention that happened today? I think I've got it pretty much everything covered. I've been on for an hour already, so just want to make a daily update, just kind of a chew the rag type of thing. Sometimes I'll have some topics. Sometimes I'll just pop on to converse with people. I do have StreamYards. I can I don't have the Ultra account or whatever, but I can let a few people up to talk. I don't think I can do as many as some of the other big guys can, but I sure like to start having people come up to the mic and discuss things with me. That would be great. So let's just see if anybody. Try the YouTube thing. So I'll just hang for a few minutes, see if anybody else jumps in, has anything to say. And if not, I think I've ran my mouth long enough. Try again tomorrow. There is a channel. If you saw me on Twitter and didn't see YouTube, the YouTube channel's in there as well. I have quite a few videos and more coming discussing different aspects of role-playing and wargaming, commentary. Been doing this a long time. I know the 40-year thing is a trope that most people just kind of, they go, yeah, we've all heard it before. Okay, fine, but it still ends up being true for me. So, been around a long time, and can help you out with some things. Been doing a lot of it. Haven't been able to, break out into the viral internet expert guy yet, but still pretty in tune with things. So, I don't know. See if this thing, where are we at? Oh, ain't nobody on a fucking YouTube. Isn't, I thought Twitter was being mean to me. Being mean sounds a little childish, but it sure isn't very. But YouTube don't promote me at all. Damn. Heavens to Murgatroyd. Nobody on the YouTube. Who else is going here? Is he still on? Whoa. Don't want to hear that no more. Maybe going maybe coming on after Delver, or maybe coming on before Delver might be a better idea. It seems to be obviously more popular duh. Yeah, anyway. All right, we'll try again later. See what happens. Gonna sign off for now.